On the afternoon of November 24th, 1971, a man in a dark suit walked up to the Northwest Orient Airlines counter at Portland International Airport. He carried a black briefcase. He wore a white shirt, a black tie, and dark sunglasses. He paid $20 in cash for a one-way ticket to Seattle. He gave the name Dan Cooper, and a few hours later, he would commit the only unsolved airplane hijacking in United States history. To this day, no one knows who he really was. No one knows if he survived, and no one knows where he went. This is the story of D.B. Cooper. Flight 305 was a routine 30-minute flight from Portland to Seattle. There were 36 passengers on board that afternoon. Cooper sat in the back of the plane, in seat 18C. He ordered a bourbon and soda. He lit a cigarette. He looked like an ordinary businessman. Shortly after takeoff, he handed a note to flight attendant Florence Schaffner. At first, she assumed it was a phone number from a lonely passenger. She put it in her pocket without reading it. Cooper leaned closer and said quietly, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." She read the note. Then he opened his briefcase. Inside were what appeared to be red cylinders, wires, and a large battery. Whether the bomb was real has never been confirmed. But at that moment, no one on the plane could be sure. Cooper dictated his demands. $200,000 in $20 bills, for parachutes, and a fuel truck ready in Seattle to refuel the aircraft as soon as it landed. The flight crew relayed the demands to the airline. Northwest Orient agreed immediately. They wanted the passengers safe. When the plane landed in Seattle at approximately 5:39 p.m., Cooper released the 36 passengers and 2 of the flight attendants in exchange for the money and parachutes. He kept the pilots and 1 flight attendant on board. Then he ordered the plane to take off again. His destination this time was Mexico City. But his instructions were unusual. Fly low, under 10,000 feet. Landing gear down. Wing flaps at 15 degrees. Cabin unpressurized. These are the exact configurations needed for a specific purpose. Anyone with basic aviation knowledge would recognize what he was preparing for. Cooper knew what he was doing. At approximately 8 p.m., somewhere over the dark forests of southwestern Washington state, Cooper lowered the rear stairs of the Boeing 727. He strapped on a parachute. He tied the bag of money to his body. And he jumped into the freezing night sky, into the rain, into a storm, into history. The FBI immediately began one of the largest manhunts in American history. Search teams combed the forests of Washington state. Helicopters flew grid patterns for weeks. Ground crews walked miles of dense wilderness. Divers searches traversent. Dogs traquaient possible landing zone. They found nothing. No parachute. No body. No money. No trace of D.B. Cooper. It was as if he had disappeared in a thin air. The FBI investigation was massive. They interviewed over 1,000 suspects. They followed thousands of leads. They analyzed the tie Cooper left on the plane. They studied the cigarette butts he had smoked. They examined the note he had handed to the flight attendant. The tie became one of the most important pieces of evidence. Decades later, in the 2000s, forensic scientists found microscopic particles on it, including rare earth elements, titanium, and metals that suggested Cooper may have worked in aerospace or the chemical industry. But it was not enough to identify him. The name he gave, Dan Cooper, was almost certainly a fake. A reporter misheard it as D.B. Cooper during early news coverage, and that name stuck forever. For years, the case remained cold. Then in 1980, something happened that no one expected. A young boy named Brian Ingram was digging in the sand along the banks of the Columbia River in Washington state. His family was setting up a campfire during a picnic. Brian found bundles of money, wet, decaying, and partially destroyed $20 bills. The FBI examined the serial numbers. They matched. It was Cooper's ransom money. Approximately $5,800 was recovered, but the remaining $194,200 was never found. And the discovery raised more questions than answers. How did the money end up buried on the riverbank? Did Cooper hide it there? Did it wash down from a landing site? Did it fall from him during the jump? No one could say for certain. Over the decades, investigators considered many suspects. Richard Floyd McCoy hijacked a similar plane just 4 months after the Cooper incident. He also demanded money and parachutes. He also jumped out over the wilderness. He was caught within days. Many believed he was Cooper, but the FBI eventually ruled him out. Physical descriptions did not match. Robert Rackstraw was a Vietnam veteran with extensive parachute experience. He fit many aspects of the Cooper profile. He was investigated for years. He denied any involvement. He died in 2019. Kenneth Christensen was a former Northwest Orient employee with military parachute training. A 2011 book claimed he was Cooper, but the FBI never officially confirmed it. Dozens of other names came and went. Confessions were made and retracted. Books were written. Documentaries were produced. But no one has ever been officially identified as D.B. Cooper. In July 2016, after 45 years of investigation, the FBI officially closed the case. Not because they had solved it, but because they had exhausted every reasonable lead. The case file, now over 60 volumes long, was archived. Any new evidence would still be reviewed, but the active investigation had ended. D.B. Cooper had beaten the FBI. He had committed the perfect crime. The question that has haunted investigators for over 50 years is simple. Did he survive? Some experts believe he could not have. He jumped into freezing rain, in a heavy storm, at night, over dense forest, with no light and no navigation. He was wearing a business suit and loafers. He had no survival gear. The wind at that altitude and temperature could have killed him within hours. Others believe he did survive. He knew what he was doing. He chose that specific aircraft configuration for a reason. He may have planned the jump for weeks or months. If he landed safely, he could have walked out of the forest and disappeared into a normal life. If he survived, he would be an elderly man today, perhaps in his 90s, perhaps already gone, perhaps someone's quiet neighbor who never told a soul what he did that night in 1971. Perhaps he took the secret to his grave. D.B. Cooper became a legend in American history. He was praised in songs, featured in movies, studied in criminology courses, debated in online forums for decades. He inspired an entire generation of copycat hijackers. So many people tried to imitate his crime that airline security policies had to be completely rewritten. The rear staircase design of the Boeing 727 was modified so no one could ever open it in flight again. The device that was added is officially called the Cooper vane. His name is still attached to it today. More than 50 years have passed. The plane is retired. The stewardess has passed away. The FBI investigators who worked the case are gone. The only physical evidence remains locked in an FBI archive. The money was mostly never recovered. And somewhere out there, buried in the forest, at the bottom of a river, or in a quiet, unmarked grave, lies the truth about what happened on the night of November 24th, 1971. A man walked onto a plane. He took what he wanted, and he jumped into the darkness. The only unsolved hijacking in United States history. And after 5 decades of searching, one question still remains. Who is D.B. Cooper? If you enjoyed this real investigation, subscribe to Shadow Files for more unsolved cases and forgotten mysteries. Because some stories don't end with justice. Some end with silence.